Leadership is not something you do or have. It's a state of being. My guest today, Brian Roberts, he's a CEO advisor. He's an executive coach. Actually, he's called the Executive Whisperer. He's a Vistage worldwide peer group leader and chair, which means that he leads groups of leaders to the next level of their success. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And he's also the CEO and founder of Croy Connect. I said that right, Brian, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Croy Connect,
USVI, yep, that's it.
Which is his executive leadership and management programs that he works in Fortune 100 companies and the government, and he's on so many boards, and he's just so interested in everything. I met Brian at a business club that we belong to, and have always been thoroughly impressed with who he is, what he writes about, and what he gives to the people that are in his groups. And today I wanted to talk to Brian because before I had the mic on, Brian, you and I were talking about how lonely it is to be in leadership. So I really want to thank you for being on the program.
Thank you for having me. This is great. And by the way, it's a mutual admiration society.
That's way cool to hear. I appreciate it. I have a few people who I hold up as my avatars of where I want to go with this thing, and you're one of them. So I appreciate that. So yeah, so you run some of the most successful Vistage peer group organizations in the Washington, D.C. area. And your people are already successful. They're already top notch. They're already good at what they do. And then they're attracted to you and what you do because they're going it alone. We were just talking about how guys who look like you and me don't have a lot of friends, don't have a lot of support system. And that's a built-in support system. Why did you get started in supporting this kind of thing?
Well, it's kind of funny here. What I had been doing prior when I started my company back in 2001, just had the 18-year anniversary here in December of 01. It was really more consulting, and the bulk of the work was actually technology solutions. I came from a telecom, datacom background, and that was my company. The recession totally blew up my business, and I had to figure out, okay, what am I doing? What was left of my business at the time was just high-level work for Fortune 100 companies at the time. That's our technology solutions were Fortune 100. And so I said, well, maybe I need to do this similar kind of work with smaller companies. And so I latched on to Vistage for many reasons. One, I think it's the best of all the programs out there. And by the way, I will say this too, although I love Vistage, I always tell everybody, you need any business owner or CEO, you need an executive peer group. And whether it's Vistage or one of our competitors, doesn't matter, just pick one. And if it's Vistage, I'm not the only chair around. If you don't like redheads, although my wife says it's gray now, not red. If you don't like redheaded chairs, you can find somebody else. But just make sure you do yourself a favor, because to your point, it is lonely out there. So 10 years ago, I started on this journey of running peer groups. And I got to tell you, here's a case where the recession blew up my business, and now I'm doing what I love. And I may never have gotten to this place. It wasn't for something that quote unquote bad happened, So sometimes that other door that opens is better, right? And for me, I've had a few things like that happen in my career. And every time, even though I thought I had it pretty good, the next thing was better. So just know that, right? So but what I love about it is that I now get to pick all my clients. Everyone who comes into my peer group, I vet them, obviously, make sure they're the type that want to learn, want to grow. And then I'm going to like them, because I've got to spend, a monthly one-on-one with them, and they're going to spend a whole day with a group of other folks just like themselves. And if I don't want to spend time with you, I don't like you, I don't want you in my group. Right. I want to have fun too, right? So, but then it goes to your point about being lonely, because where do you go to talk about all the problems that are going on in your company? And when you like the business club you mentioned, when we're over there, everyone's saying how wonderful things are, and they're kicking butts, and this and that's happening. Excuse me. But when it comes to Vistage, it's like, okay, what's maybe not working so well? What are your concerns? What's going on? Maybe your problem is even like your business partner, or maybe you're having cash flow problems. You're not going to tell anyone in the business club you got cash flow problems. Well, that's where the one place we had this sacred environment. I mean, truly, it's almost sacred, because we talk about everything in that meeting. I got to tell you, it's not just business either. It's because our health, personal life, and business are all tied into what we do, and each one affects the other, right? So it's just an amazing thing. Magic happens in that room, and it's hard to explain. You almost have to come and see it. It's hard to explain unless you've actually witnessed it. It's just so powerful, and it's so rewarding. I'm just so blessed that I've gotten into this position.
So it is. I think it's an amazing thing. With the question I always have, I do solo podcasts, and I write about the fact that I think people need a posse. My friend Helen Appleby is writing a book on women's leadership, and she talks about how every woman needs to have their board of directors, right? So you need people in your life, to hold you accountable, to hold a vision that you may temporarily forget, just to know that you're not alone, right? To share the burden. But a lot of us are mavericks, and especially people who start businesses. They're basically got that maverick mentality. I got this thing. I can go it alone. They start out, maybe they got a team of people and they feel part of the team, but more and more they feel isolated from the team because they have to make the decisions and take the responsibilities for things. How do you meet someone who seems to be a perfect fit for a peer group kind of thing? How do you show them what they're missing if they don't even know that they're missing it?
Yeah, that is the tricky part too. And the bigger the ego, the tougher it is. And frankly, most business owners have some level of ego. Some are, you can really recognize it right away, and others it's a little subdued. But you just have to let them know that just from experience, I'll say you don't have all the answers. You really need to do yourself a favor and come and see. And what I'll end up doing is giving them a couple of examples of what's happened in the group and the kinds of things that have happened. And I just had a recent story. This is hilarious because it's funny, but it also shows you the power of a peer group and an ongoing peer group as well. Because I know a lot of people say, well, I just took up with some business friends over dinner, once a month or once a quarter or whatever. Well, it doesn't get as deep as what happens in this room. What happens in this room is everyone gets in there and you get to know each other because you spend literally, years together, because most people that come into a business group at the CEO level, it's a 5 to 6 year time frame where they stay in a group. So for one, that's a selling point. Obviously, there's value. People get into it and they don't leave, right? But one funny recent story, without breaching any confidences, this just shows the power of having it over time. One of my one of my members got to the point where he was showing what he wants to accomplish in 3 to 5 years, more from in his off time. And really starting now, but here's what I need to do. I need to do more of this. And it was all personal stuff. And one of my other members said, when we went around the room, offering advice and everything else, all right, I'm going to call BS on you on this. He said, I just looked back, and 2 years ago, this guy took notes from 2 years ago when the guy presented 2 years prior. Because we rotate who hosts the meeting every month too. He said, 2 years ago, that slide is the exact same slide as it is today, and you haven't done a damn thing. And just stop talking. Like, whoa, powerful. And he goes, wow, you got me, man. You're right. I said I was going to do this 2 years ago, start doing these things, like golf, spend time with
Wow, the power of having someone who is intimate enough with you and committed enough to you to call you on your bullshit.
See, and you called it big time, committed to you, and they know you really well, because that's exactly what will happen. You'll be 6 or 9 months down the road, and somebody will say something in issue processing or whatever, and say, wait a minute, 6 or 9 months ago, you said you're going to do this, and you're doing this now. What gives? What's going on? And the calling bullshit on you is huge. Huge, because it's an accountability thing. Another quick story that's fun along this line is I had one of my CEOs who said he was going to do X, Y, and Z. I won't mention what it is or anything, but he said he was going to do something before the next time we met, because when you process an issue, you say, okay, that's great. We got all the feedback. So based on the feedback, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I'm going to do X. I said, okay, cool. When are you going to do it? Oh, Dad, I've got to do it in the next 3 days. Okay, very cool. All right. So about a week prior, I had my one-on-one before the next group meeting. And I said, so how are things going with X? And he said, I haven't done anything yet. And I said, oh man, you really want to go to the meeting next month or next week without having done this? He goes, yeah, damn it. And he did it. So, I joked about it at the next meeting saying, just so you guys know, a week ago he hadn't done it yet, but thanks to all of you, he did it. So
the only reason I ran the Marine Corps Marathon was because I raised $4,000 or $5,000 and told everybody I was running the Marine Corps Marathon. Otherwise, my knees, my back were like, we're not running a marathon.
No, that peer pressure is so powerful, Mark. It's just it's amazing because you don't want to let those folks down because they've spent let's say you process an issue of whatever kind issue or challenge or opportunity that you processed with the group. At the end of it, they've spent anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes helping you figure out the best solution set, and you selected it, and then you said you're going to do it. You can't let them down. They give you their time and energy and experience, and now you're not going to do what you said you're going to do. Really? Are you kidding me? So, and the problem is when you are a business owner or a CEO, to some extent you can do or not do whatever you want, especially if you're privately owned. It's like, hey, who's going to tell me I can't? My little board over here called Vistage. So you need that sometimes to help you get over your stuff, your emotional baggage, whatever that's holding you back. And believe me, one of the toughest things I see with all my Vistage members are they've been in business for 10, 15, 20 years, and they've got some employees who helped them get all the way there, but there's no home for them anymore. And everyone knows what needs to be done, and it's so hard to do, and to make that change. So again, the group kind of helps in those cases.
So what you're saying is making organizational changes with people
Yes.
who are loyal to you and have become family.
Yeah, maybe they think that they're ready for that exec position, but they're not, or maybe they just don't have a home anymore, period. And it's like, you've been carrying around for a while because you have to, but now all your other employees are looking at you like, you got this $150,000 guy who's not doing anything anymore. What are we doing? And you're saying money's a little tight. I mean, it doesn't, the message doesn't match the action. So those are huge emotional decisions that are very difficult. And so those are, some of the things that we help you get through, as well as pushing you past your own emotional baggage,
Yeah, because I have a group that and it's an informal group. We were part of a bigger group.
Yep.
And then we just somehow got together 4 years ago, and every Friday at 2:00, we never no matter where we are in the world, no matter what's going on, it takes a lot for us to miss our Friday Zoom call.
Right.
And without those people, I don't know that I would have accomplished, a tenth of what I've accomplished. I don't know if I'd be who I am. One of the, we were talking before the mics went on, is you're now working with emerging leaders, people, so a lot of my clientele are usually between senior leaders, right, who are trying to master midlife and trying to master that end of the spectrum. And then I get hired a lot to help emerging leaders, people who were part of a team who got promoted, right, outside of, and now they need a whole new skill set.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they got promoted because they worked harder, the hustle, the grind. They did more than everybody else. They were better than everybody else. Now they get promoted to where they need to be success through others. Whole different skill set, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I get hired to help people with these leadership skills, right? Now you get, and then, so there's that, then there's middle management, and then there's senior leadership. And now you're getting to work with peer groups in all three levels, right?
Yeah.
And before the mics went on, you talked about how exciting it is to talk to some of these emerging leaders and the energy there. The question I have is, what are the challenges? Like, I think from the time we're 3 years old on, we need a posse of people.
Yep.
So let's talk about emerging leaders, middle management, and senior leaders, and what are the different things that they need from a peer group?
So it's interesting. The model I've got going here, well, the model Vistage has going, it's not my model, but so as you mentioned, I've got this two of the CEO level groups, and then I've got one which is the more senior executive C-level type suite, those who might actually be a successor to the CEO or owner someday. And then just recently, within the last year or so, and I just started mine in November, Vistage started a group called the Emerging Leaders Group, and that is for the folks that you had mentioned who are really, never had any kind of management or leadership type of training, and they're really getting to their first role, or maybe they've been in for a while and they've been winging it, but boy, they could use some help, So I think to your point, they need a lot is the answer, because to your point, they haven't done any of this before. They've just been winging it, and they've got questions. They just don't even understand how to do some of these things. So the exciting thing for me is, even though my CEOs hear some of the same stuff over and over and over again, I always say repetition is the key to learning, right? And so you need to have it, continue to be hit. You need to get hit with the message many times before you take it and run with it. And frankly, sometimes the same message 2 years later hits home because 2 years prior you didn't really need it. You weren't in a situation where you could really, when a student is ready, the teacher appears, kind of thing, right? When I was so excited from what everybody told me how excited I was going to be when I did this emerging leader group, and then I did the first session, and I realized as I was saying some things that I would figure everyone knows because I'm jaded now after doing this, especially for 10 years, but really, doing leadership development for myself for 30 years, I realized everything I'm saying is new to them. Just about everything they're hearing. And it's like, oh my God, this is going to be so fun because they're sponges and they want to learn. They're running with some things that I would have thought they should know. I said, no, stupid. This is their first manager or leadership type training. They've never heard this stuff before, So it's just very fun for me to do that. And then what's making it even more fun than that is now I always liked having my CEOs and one of their key execs in my key executive group. Excuse me, I'm at the back end of a cold here. I would see a different perspective with our C-suite leader. Say, oh, my CEO's telling me this, but he said, oh, we're great at communicating. I said, not so much based on what I'm hearing in the key exec group from their same person. Well, now, not only does that help me not betraying any confidences with either of them, I can kind of push them together, and there's art to this too. It's not just science. Well, now I'm getting their best people, my Vistage members, their best people are in this emerging leaders group. And now I'm seeing yet another layer in their organization. So I can help them knowing what the CEO and even key exec who might be above them know that they need development on, and of course, just general stuff as well. But I made sure I asked them all the question, what specifically would you like to see them get better at, But now I can also take what I'm learning from those emerging leaders to help this key exec and the CEO. So now I can help the whole company from almost not quite top to bottom, top to middle management anyway.
What an incredible thing. I actually do that with another coach. We work tag team on different levels in the organization, and it's really been quite amazing. So what are the unique challenges you're finding for people who are in the middle management? So they still have to answer to the executive suite, but then they have teams of people that they lead, and they're being squeezed from both sides.
Yeah, they are, because you know what, we all, and this even goes for the CEO level, we all defer to the things we like to do, even though we shouldn't be doing them anymore. So with the emerging leader especially, they got where they got because they did such a great job of whatever that thing was, the technology or the operations or whatever it is. And now they're put in charge of those folks. So what they have to fight the hardest that I find is you really need to start delegating and elevating. That's my favorite term for all three of my layers now, is you need to keep thinking delegate and elevate. What can I do, or what do I need to delegate so I can elevate myself to do what I'm supposed to be doing in my new role as an emerging leader? And that's probably going to be the hardest thing for all of them to do. The other thing is, all of this, I'm laughing, it's not funny at all, but I've already had a couple of them tell me, yeah, ever since I was promoted, all of a sudden, I'm not being asked to go out to lunch. So even
that's huge.
Yeah, even if the middle manager that's lonely at the top, at their top, So I feel for them. I said, yes, you are now, in the management.
You're them.
Yeah, you're
now them.
Yeah. So, and bridging that gap is difficult. And it's like, oh man, I used to love those lunches. Well, guess what? Now you have to go lunch with your peer managers in the company, and start that new posse.
Who you're also probably kind of fighting for territory and fiefdoms and power and promotions and all that stuff. So it's really a precarious place to find your peer group.
That is true. And you know what? Especially if you've just been promoted into that new role, now you're the new kid on the block in two directions, with your new peer group of the other middle managers. Oh yeah, you're the rookie manager that just got promoted, so you got to kind of work that issue while still trying to get things done with the folks below you. Even part of you really wants to still be with them to some extent, but you're doing the right thing by advancing your career. But no, it's tough, and you're, like you said, you're one of them now, you're management. So I may not share as much with you as I used to because now you're my boss, So, and that works like not even just at the office. You might've been friends outside of the office. Now you got to start playing the game of, hey, I've got 5 people working for me. One of them is a good friend of mine. Oh, I can't show any bias to that one good friend now when the other 4 folks. So, oh yeah, all of this stuff it's going to be fun. I'm going to
Yeah.
have a lot of fun helping these folks get over all this.
So yeah, so just to redline and highlight everything that you're saying, you got to find a way to have a posse, a peer group, a board of directors, whether it's formalized through something like Vistage or one of those programs, or you put one together yourself. But you cannot go it alone.
No,
You need to up level, and keep evolving. So that brings me to another point that I love that you talk about, and I started the show with this. Leadership is not something you do or have. It's a state of being. Can you elaborate on that a bit, because it's really key and it's missed a lot.
yeah, you've got to be, you have to realize that, starting with the middle manager, but then working all the way up to the CEO. I mean, you've got to be intentional. It's like, okay, people are now looking up to me. If you're emerging leader, they're now looking up to you. But if you're in CEO role or a C-level job, everyone's looking up to you. And man, you've got to walk and talk, and every action you take has got to be, it's a state of being. You are now a leader, and people are looking at you and looking up to you. I always like to say that you have to even think about having your game face on when you're out in the parking lot. So you park your car, and as soon as you get out of that car, you better look and feel like a leader, because somebody might be looking at you walking into the building. And if you're kind of moping and walking in, and energy is drained, even if you turn it on when you walk through the door, they already saw it. They go, "Oh, okay, you're just faking now." So
how do you teach that? How do you instill that in people?
Again, I think it's just intentional. I have to, you have to say, "Hey, I'm a leader. I'm going to act like the leader." And from the moment you head to the office, start thinking and acting like you are a leader. You have to be careful about what you say and what you do, and everything. You can't be one of the guys and have that water cooler chat saying the kinds of things you might have said before. No, now you're management. People are looking up to you. It was funny. I just actually I do some strategic planning too, and I just did one yesterday. And it was interesting because a couple of them had mentioned that they have communications problems in the business, and all four that were in that room said they've had a case where they've talked to one of their employees, and they were just really trying to offer advice or have you thought of, and then they ran with it. Instead of just using it as some more data to make a decision, they ran with it because, the boss said this, so this must be the right thing. I'm going to go do this. And so the whole discussion we had was what you need to do so they don't do that, because they've had that happen even just within the last couple of months, because they want to please the boss. They think the boss is right and all those things. It's like, no, I'm just giving you a piece of data. I want you to go make that decision yourself. So before you leave, after we just had this discussion, what did you hear? Just make it clear before they walk out of the room. What did you hear, and what are you going to do? To make sure going forward that when I'm just giving you a piece of data, you're not saying that's gospel, let me go make it happen. No, it's just data. I want you to make decisions. I'm trying to grow you, and I need you to do that. So again, as a leader, we sometimes don't realize how powerful our words are. We'll just say something off the cuff, and I go, "Oh, the boss said this, so I'm going to make sure I do this." It was just a comment in the water cooler, but now they think it's the new direction of the company or something. So you have to be very careful.
It's my coach, Steve Hardison. He is maniacal about what did you hear me say? Yeah. What did you just agree to? How did you interpret that? Mm-hmm. It's almost annoying. It's like, I'm not a moron. I heard you. But I'll tell you, the man never has a missed communication, misunderstood communication. Mm-hmm. You understand what you agreed to, you understand what you're going to be coming back with, and it really has helped me be more mindful of, be mindful of my words.
You bring up a good point too. So another thing, because yes, some people might perceive it like, what am I, a moron? It's like, hey, I know this seems, sophomoric or whatever, but I know that in the past I have not communicated well. I just want to make sure I said this and you heard me, because, it's my problem, not yours. But I want to make darn sure when you walk out of here, you got the right message and you're going to do the right thing based on our conversation, and there was no miscommunication going on. I always try to throw it back on myself that it's my problem, that I've had trouble in the past, trying to alleviate that, feeling like, oh, but dummy, So,
it's interesting.
Over time, my God, I just say you got to do. again, it's being intentional, right? I just found that if I didn't make them feel okay with the fact that I'm going to ask them this question or to pair it back to me or whatever, yeah, they might feel small, and you can't have them feeling small when they're walking out of your office.
Yeah, there's a humility that goes with the power of leadership,
Big time.
together with humility and vulnerability, which is such a difficult thread to needle to thread for people, but it goes a long way.
Oh yeah, and as we talked earlier, some of our owners and CEOs have bigger egos than others, so playing that vulnerability card is very difficult for them.
Right? To be vulnerable and to walk in as a leader at the same time. You're like, wait a second, you're asking me to walk and chew gum. I'm not quite sure. How do I be vulnerable, but make sure I'm a leader and all those things? And I think that goes back to the state of being,
right?
Not the doing, not the doing, not the having, but really, who are you being when you walk in the room? Are you being an open, powerful, taking on your role, and inhabiting the role? I think it's a really important thing.
I even had one of my CEOs tell me that, I mean, he is like the Energizer Bunny in the office, and so he found that if he walked in and he was a little down, the whole office was down. If he walked out in and he was up, the whole office was up. That's powerful without saying a word. Just walking to his desk in the morning, you're like, oh, it's a bad day. This is gonna be a long day. Oh no, or like, wow, this is gonna be awesome. The boss is happy, and we're gonna kick butt today. Again, it's like you said, the state of being, and I think it's intentionality too. You have to tell yourself, yeah, I'm the man or I'm the woman now. I'm the boss, so I need to make sure. I just have to assume everyone's looking at me, and that's kind of scary, but it's true, and because they are, so just assume they are.
But even as a coach, someone will say, Mark, 6 months ago you said such and such, and I took that to heart. I'm like, wait a second, you listened to me? And like, yes, people pay me, they listen to me. Okay. Right. I'd be really conscious of what I have to say.
Yeah, and we have the other thing happen too, where like 9 months later they'll do something. Oh yeah, this works. That was great. Like, where'd you learn that? I don't know where I heard that. I said, okay, whatever. It was for me 9 months ago, or from one of my group members 9 months ago. Because I do have sometimes go back to your ego thing. Sometimes people go, they feel like they figured this out or whatever on their own, not realizing that we talked about it in the Vistage group meeting with the speaker or me or the group mentioned or whatever. It was still in the back of their mind, but then they forgot where they actually heard it, And so I sometimes remind them, okay, remember, Joe told you.
Reminding people of the value that the group brings, that the coaching brings, that the thing that you're doing together really is in service of them. It's not all an ego thing. It's because, again, we were talking about how I have a client who's taking a 2-month break,
right?
And how absolutely precarious that is after working for 6 months, getting to a certain place and forgetting why you got to where. It's not me and the money. I have someone to backfill them, and it's not, like my ego. It's, dude, you are right on, like you've gotten you to exactly where you can start creating what you want to create. Don't take your training wheels off. That's crazy.
It really is, but sometimes everyone's looking at, I've got a problem, I solved it, I'm done. No. What got you into that mess in the first place? All the baggage that, you need to take a look at and continue to work on forever. I mean, there are Vistage members, I started my group 10 years ago. I've got a couple that have been in for the full 10 years and another 3 that have been in for 9 years. They all are smart enough to know they don't know it all, and they know that even if I get over a hump or two, which they have, another hump comes in the way where once again they could use some help getting over it. And sometimes it's just, the advice they get might be different than what they thought they might do. I mean, one of my favorite stories is, and I do this all the time, when I'm working one-on-one with somebody, like a week prior to our group meeting, we'll talk about what might be a good issue to bring to the group. And we'll talk about the problem, and the two of us will work on it. And we actually think we got a pretty good solution. We don't want to like totally solve it, but kind of like heading on the right path. I said, okay, fine. We might be right, we might be wrong. Let's bring it to the group and leverage the other 12 or 15 heads and brains and experiences to make sure we didn't screw up here. I can tell you, it's never exactly the same as what the two of us came up with. It's either a little twist or a major change. It's like, oh, well, the power of the group, right? So again, why would you give up that coach or that group? Because the next obstacle is going to come. You're going to need help again. You can't just you can't always just turn things on and off, to get over it. Some things are a quick decision on off. Some are a lot of baggage that needs to be worked on forever and ever. Amen. And to help you avoid getting into it in the first place. Wouldn't that be better to just avoid it instead of having to get into it and then have to solve it? So
we have this little thing called an ego that wants to get us isolated, that wants to get us alone, so we can have our likes, dislikes, grudges, and really kind of keep us small. I'm in a leadership program right now that's kicking my ass, and beginner's mind is like really hard, and I want to quit. Like, I recognize I just want, like, I don't need this. I don't want this. I know all this stuff. And you know what, dude, your ego doesn't want to be accountable to growth. And if I'm going to help my people grow, I need to constantly be on that edge myself. So and the edge is always there for anyone, no matter how enlightened we think we are. Right. So it's amazing to me. And I know part of this is probably, Brian's problem, but I think we all have this problem. I always say, repetition is the key to learning. And I sometimes have, I have my three groups in a row, now every other month, 4 groups in a row, speak at the same time, or have them in a row because I have a same speaker come in to speak to all 3 of those groups, sometimes all 4 of those groups. And I'll tell you, the 3, the C-level and the 2 CEO owner speaker programs are exactly the same. So I'll hear the speaker the first day. And then the second day, I'll pick up something different, even though he said all the same things the day before. And then the third day, because, my mind will go on a tangent, or I'll miss a key thing or whatever. So I just think that we are in a continuous learning mode our entire lives. And if I can learn something the next day was from the same message, or hear the same speaker, or read a book a second time, 5-10 years later. I mean, some of the best books ever, Dale Carnegie's and Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill. You read those at different times in your life, you're going to take different things from them because you're in a different place. You're hearing it differently. So I'm such a firm believer now in just constant learning, or continuous learning and development for everybody, but especially for business people. Which is why you're so vibrant and so valuable to your people. So, Brian, where can people find you?
So I'm not shy about giving my phone number out, even 703-405-1733, or you can email me.
25,000 people now have your phone number.
I mean, bring it. I'll help you out. Hey, the way I look at it, Mark, is my DNA is just to help people. My entire life, I didn't even tell you this story. If you have time after I get this out, we can go to it. If not, we'll just cut it off. The other one is brian.roberts@vistagechair.com. brian.roberts@vistagechair.com.
And we'll put all this in the show notes so people can just click on you and get to you.
Okay, sounds good. The quick story about where I am now, which is amazing, is that even as a teenager, people would come up to me and tell me stuff that I'm going, wow, why are you telling me this? I don't need to know this. I said, what am I, Dear Abby? Over time, I realized it was a gift, and it really helped me. That I guess I'm disarming. I don't know if it was the Midwestern redhead thing or whatever it was. Maybe felt sorry for me. But I realized it was a gift throughout my business career, and now, especially as a Vistage chair, where sometimes I feel like I'm a psychiatrist or psychologist when I'm talking to my folks in the one-on-one. And I'm not degreed, so I'm not saying I am. That's a whole different level, and I'll turn you on to somebody if you get to that point. But I'm grateful that I have that gift that people open up to me. They'll let me say, "How do you know I'm telling you this? I just met you yesterday," or whatever. I say, well, I don't either, but I'm okay with it if you are. And they keep talking. So it's truly a gift, and I've been, like I say, blessed. And I wouldn't be doing this work if it hadn't been for the recession blowing up my business. So thank God for that.
So Brian, really, thank you for just sharing your wisdom and really driving home a point that I think is really important, to never go it alone. You just don't have to do it, and it's not smart to do it. So I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
And to you, my wonderful, precious listeners, thank you for spending your time and your attention with us. I love you, and have a great rest of the day.